This session, understanding risk and security, it's a um, it's a very what do you say, a very high level discussion. And the reason we did it is like if you interact with many of the students, or even if you interact with many of the companies or even academia, the thing is the area of interest most of the times is like cybersecurity or security in general. But many students don't know like where the learning part comes in, and where is the demand, and what is the significance of security, and why one has to actually work in the field of security. So if they get the big picture, when they will know, okay, security is not only hacking, or what they realize is most of the students say like security is equal to hacking, or attacking someone's else computer, or hacking Facebook and Instagram. It's not that. It's much more than that. So if they get that clarity in the thought process when it comes to security, that will be of great benefit, because industry wants people who understand the big picture, where exactly security will fit in. So and risk, as you know, risk is the foundational part of security. So without proper risk management, having security, or some kind of secure operations becomes meaningless. So we'll understand what is the relationship between risk and security, and how actually the risk management part of it actually results in security, cyber security, information security, and other areas being used in a company. Okay, so agenda is like we'll discuss the big picture. Okay, so we'll start from scratch, means we'll see how a company, when it is being developed from scratch, where exactly the security comes in, where exactly the risk management comes in. Okay, and then we'll understand the risk part. So what is risk? What is actually um, the components which make up a risk? And then we'll discuss something about risk management. I've kept it at a very high level. It's like a risk management 101 kind of a thing. So will if you feel interested, and if you feel like these kind of sessions we should have, then we'll develop into each of the areas in the upcoming IPD weeks. Okay. So the big picture. So let's say that we become friends during the course of this session, and we want to start a company. Okay, we want to start some kind of, say, a healthcare IT related company. Okay, so we want to start a company. So when we start a company, we have a vision. So we say like in the next 5 years, we should be the, say, number second or number third healthcare IT company in the world, and that is our vision kind of a thing. And then afterwards, what we'll do is we will actually have a mission. So vision is a big thing. So vision means like this is a long-term vision. So vision usually is associated with a long-term planning. So what I have to achieve in the next 5 years. And then I have to break it down, because I want to achieve the 5 years in step-by-step process. So what I will do in the first year, what I will do in the second year, what I will do in the third year. So that becomes a mission statement. So what I want to achieve, say in the first year. So mission is something kind of a achievable thing. So if we achieve our mission, in the long run, we will actually achieve the vision. So we will say like, okay, we want to get this much amount of, or we want to be in this area. Say in Asia Pacific, we want to be the number second healthcare IT company, some kind of thing in the first year. Now, mission is again is kind of an abstract thing. Abstract thing means, okay, I'll that is my mission, that is my statement, that is my willingness to do something so that I achieve my vision. But I want to make it more concrete. I want to make it more objective. So I can't be means my mission statement is like kind of a pathway, but I want to break it down. Means I want to say In order to achieve my mission, I want, if I have to achieve that mission, I have to achieve these goals or these objectives. Okay, so it becomes very important. So that the employees I hire, means when I, if we say suppose three of us will become hire a company, start a company, we want to have senior management in place, and we want to have middle level management, and we want operations guy in place, so they should understand what is the goal and the objective. So again, the difference comes, what is goal and what is objective. So goal is like, okay, I want to be the number third or number second healthcare IT company. It's kind of a, it's kind of an abstract kind of a thing. But objective means very specific. So I need, say, $1 million or 1 million euros as sales in the first year. So because of my healthcare IT company, I have to state in a specific term that I want this. So that is my objective. So goal is okay. Goal is related to objective, but goal cannot be like a time bound. So objective is time bound. So we have to say like in this year we will achieve something. Okay. So we will say achieve say $1 million in sales. Okay. So that is my objective. So again, to recap what we are doing, we are having a vision, and vision is a long-term plan for the company. Then we break it down into mission, and mission is again as abstract kind of a thing. So we have to give something which the people who implement understand. So then we have to actually break down our mission into kind of objectives. Goals is not time bound, but objective is time bound. I have to achieve this in order to reach my mission and vision in the long run. Now, what happens in due course is, okay, I have objectives, but with just objectives, what I can do means, okay, I can write whatever objectives I want, but I want to create a plan. So my board of directors and senior management have to sit together and create a strategy. So they have to actually create a strategy on how to achieve these objectives. So my whole point of my strategy is that I have to achieve these objectives of this new company, so that our objectives are achieved, then we'll in the long run we'll achieve our mission and vision. But the problem is we don't get what is strategy. So what is strategy all about? So why do we need some kind of a strategy? Or what is the meaning of the word strategy? So strategy means, it's very simple thing. You are at position A, means right now, say I am at position A and I have to reach position B. So what are the steps I'll take from position A to reach position B? So right now, say means my sales are say $10,000, okay, and I want to reach say $100,000. So if that is the thing, then if my, what is the way I'll reach from $10,000 to $100,000? What are the steps? Okay, what is the plan of action, so that I can move from point A to point B, so that I will achieve my strategy. So what happens if my achieve or my strategy works, and if I reach to point B, I would have achieved my objectives. So if I have achieved my objectives, what will happen is I would have achieved my goal or mission for that particular year. So next year again I have to redo this. But if my strategy pays off, then I, whatever is was the objective of the company, would have reached. Now, how to actually do this means how to build a strategy. So, in order to build a strategy, we need something. Okay, we need to use something. We need people. Means it can't, we can't reach our strategy without people. So we need people. So we need employees. We need partners. We need someone to sell. We need support team and all those things. So we need people, and those people simply can't come and do something. So we need buildings, we need equipments, we need other things. Okay, other supportive thing, we need network support, we need kind of air conditioning kind of a thing. So we need all kind of support for those people to work. And we also need processes. So people should know how to work, what is the process, what we should do, means all the procedures, all the planning. Okay, and we should also give them technology. So it's a healthcare IT company, so we need computers, we need software. So all these combined, so these people, these processes, this equipments, this technology, those are called as assets, assets of the company. So we have to use assets of the company in order to implement the strategy. So assets should be used so that we can go from point A to point B. So assets have to be used. The problem comes is when I try to use assets, there are some inherent, what we call, I have to use the word now. Yeah, there is a risk. There is some kind of environment we work in. So we have to work in an environment. We are not we are not alone in the industry. There are many people, so there is competitive risk. There is, we'll come to the word risk. So again, there is government. We have to comply with the government. There are various other factors, and there might be, since we use computers, there might be information security risk. So there might be threat actors who will try to attack our computers. So there are people, or there are concepts, or there are things which prevent from us using our assets to reach point B. So our strategy has to take into consideration these factors which come and prevent us in reaching our goal. Okay, means reaching our objective. There are some things which are under our control, there are some things which are not under our control. Say COVID was not in any company's control. So COVID derailed many companies' strategy, derailed many companies were closed because they couldn't actually anticipate this COVID would play such a big role in actually reaching their objectives. Okay, so assets are there. We have to use those assets in order to reach our goal. But in order to reach our goal, we have to use assets. But those assets might be affected from by internal and external factors, sometimes which prevent us in reaching our goal. Yeah? And that's where risk comes in. Okay, so risk is to actually keep it very simple. It's a probability of an event happening and its consequences. So again, just to clarify, there is a positive risk and there is a negative risk, or the consequences of the event might be positive or might be negative, to be very specific. So because sometimes what the perception is that risk is always negative. So the results of a risk is always negative, need not be. So means in information security world, it's a different thing. But risk is not only information security risk. We'll come to it. So when an event say suppose we have to move to the cloud. Say today our healthcare, most of the healthcare IT companies, for example, are working on on-premises thing. Okay, so we, in order to be agile and in order to give customers a quick solution, we think of moving to the cloud. So when we move to the cloud, say for example, there are a lot of considerations. So suppose we work from our customers are from US, then the customer will say, it's very difficult if you move to a cloud outside US because you have to then actually account for HIPAA, that is Healthcare Insurance Portability Act. So you have to account for HIPAA. And if you move to say GDP Europe, then GDPR comes into picture. So it's a protected healthcare information. It's a sensitive information. So sensitive personal information, there are much more considerations in GDPR. So if I move to say China, so China has a new privacy rule. If I move to India, India is its privacy rule is about to be implemented, means about to come to parliament for approval. So again, so there are a lot of issues which can happen. So but if I go to the cloud, I'll get a lot of cost savings. My process will be agile, means I can bring about changes quickly, and I can scale all the benefits of the cloud. It's on demand, I can scale, it is elastic. So many benefits I'll get. So That's a risk. So means if you get a fine from GDPR, all your benefits, whatever you have gained, will be nullified. So then you have to actually do risk management and see which is better. Okay. So why I highlighted this point is, again, the consequence of an event can be positive as well as negative. So we can't tell that, means if I don't take the risk, say suppose if I don't take the risk of moving to the cloud, I have I'll face extreme competition. So I have to take that risk, but the risk might pay off and I'll get positive results out of the risk, or if it doesn't pay off, I'll get negative results. So that's where the risk management part comes in. For our discussion, understand that the risk is just a probability. Risk might not happen at all. So if risk happens for sure, then it's not a risk. It's an event. Okay, you know that that's going. Say suppose if someone says like tomorrow it's going to rain, 100%, then it's not a risk. 100% if it is going to rain, then it's going to rain. So you have to plan for it. But if they say like it's 50% chance of rain, so 50% it might rain and 50% it might not rain. So that's where it comes. So again, it's a probability. It's a chance of that event happening. And usually what people associate is the negative consequences of that event, means what that event brings about. And in our information security world, because we are going to concentrate more on information technology and information security risks. So it's an event which will prevent us or make it difficult to achieve our goals. So say for example, we actually go to the cloud, and unfortunately our cloud security part was not good, or the cloud service provider was hacked badly. That can happen. Our cloud provider had an outrage. So means we had a major outrage. So Amazon, for example, AWS says there is an outrage for 5-6 hours. Sorry about it, and we have an SLA. We'll reimburse you, but we lost the customers, means belief or trust on us because we are a new company. Okay, so sometimes all these factors come into play which prevent us to reach our goal. Okay, so there are different risks. Okay, there is a finance risk. So in order to start a company, I need money. So means I have to account for it. So some investors would have said, okay, we will give you this amount. So we plan for it, and unfortunately there is some issue. They say no, we can't give. Say for example, take the war which is happening. Say one of our investors was from Russia. So he says, no, I can't transfer money to you because I can't, because of the restrictions I cannot transfer money to you. So then we lost an investor. Okay, so for that kind of example, so again I need money for day in and day out operations, for working capital management. So I need some amount of money. So if I don't get that amount, then it's a risk. Okay, and usually finance risk is a subject by itself. So there are a lot of ways to mitigate it, like hedging, futures, and other things. But again, it's a risk, and it that's why to mitigate that risk, there are a lot of financial products actually in place. Market risk again. So if our customers whom we are targeting are say from the war-based zone, then we lost our customers because now this war is happening. So say suppose it's a country where COVID has set in. So again, that's a risk. So market related risks are also there. Okay, compliance risk. So means again, usually some companies actually account for it. They actually reserve some money so that they can actually pay the fines. So that's how big the compliance risk is. Okay, if you don't comply to the rules, it become, even the existence of the company might be questioned. Third party risk, all of you know, like we dependent on suppliers. Say for example, as a Cisco company, we said like we are facing supply chain issues. So means if we face supply chain issues, then the delivery of the product sometimes might not be on time because we are not to be blamed. It's a supply chain. They are facing some issues because of all the COVID restrictions, border getting closed. Say for example, you know what is happening in Shanghai. So if our supplier is from Shanghai and if something happens, then we can't meet our deadline. It's not because of us, because our process is dependent on some supplier who is actually facing problem. Who it is also not because of the supplier. It's extra, means it's behind his or her means process. So it's outside their um process. So they can't do it. It's behind their control. Okay, some kind of a thing. Again, we come to information security risk. So when we come to information security risk, we have to use our assets, and most of the times, most of the companies nowadays use information technology or internet, and the software is cloud based, or there's a lot of information technology involved in actually in the strategy. So strategy is used to reach from point A to point B. If we reach point B, our objectives are reached, but we use a lot of information technology, and as soon as information technology is used, there is a problem with the security part of it, because when it comes to information technology, we have to protect the information technology assets, that is information of the per se, we have to protect the information. So what is that? The threat to those assets, the assets threat they face is confidentiality. Say for example, we are actually developing a new software, and our source code has to be means confidential, means it should not be leaked outside, otherwise our competitors will steal it. So then we have to protect the confidentiality of the source code. Our source code is an asset. Integrity, so means changing something, accidentally changing. Say suppose we are actually getting the data of our patients or of subjects who are in the hospital, and we get that we unfortunately our software malfunctions, and it changes the values. That is really bad, but that is integrity of our data lost. Our data is also an asset. And if doctors and healthcare professionals use our software every time, and if the software, say, goes down because of an outrage, that's an availability problem. So, all these things, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the assets, face risk. Risk of what? Risk of failing, actually. So, risk of confidentiality being lost, integrity being lost, availability being lost. That's where the information security risk is very critical. If information security risk materializes, then definitely we can't reach our goals. Okay? So coming to information technology risk, so we say like the usual definition you get is how it materializes. Say we said confidentiality, we store our source code in some software, like we use some software, put it on some very secure hardware, and we are assured that relatively it is secure. Relatively means the risk of someone attacking it is less. So what, when we say risk of someone attacking is less, means what? So risk, the formula is, there are many formulas. So it's, to make it simple, I have written like this. Risk is threat into vulnerability into something. Okay. Now, what is that something? We'll come to that later. What is vulnerability? Okay. So vulnerability means what? So all of you know vulnerability is a weakness in the asset. Asset means, don't think like it's only computers. It can be people. So phishing attacks are targeted towards weakness in the people. So by and large, our systems are safe, but people don't use it safely, don't use it securely. Then it's not the weakness in the information technology or the equipments or the software, it's the weakness in the people. So human factor. So it's all combined. So it's a weakness in the asset. Okay. Or if we are in a location, means our people are very smart, we have trained them, and our software is 100, means almost safe. We are actually monitoring everything whatever needs to be done, but our data center, for example, is in a cloud, or sorry, earthquake prone area or a flood prone area. So we are vulnerable. So we don't know when earthquake happens. We don't know when a tsunami should can strike in. Say for example, we don't know if there is a flooding which can happen. So again, there are factors which we can manage, there are factors we can't manage. Vulnerability is the weakness. Okay, very very important. If there is no vulnerability, then there is no threat, there is no risk. So suppose we live in a in say in an area where tsunami cannot hit us, then we are safe from tsunami, the risk of tsunami exploiting our assets, so we are safe. So that is most important. So if there is no vulnerability, there is no threat. Say for example, if there is an attack on Windows systems, if you don't use Windows, then you are safe. Say if there is an attack on say Oracle database, if you don't use Oracle database, then we are safe from that particular thing, from that vulnerability. Okay. And threat is, again, when we come to vulnerability, so why this is important is we do vulnerability scanning. There are software which does vulnerability scanning. So we do vulnerability assessment. So we want to check whether our systems are safe, or what vulnerabilities our system might have. We will never achieve 100% because the company which develops the software, if we take the software vulnerability, they themselves are not sure that their software is 100% safe, 100% without any vulnerabilities. So there will be vulnerabilities. So these software will actually scan for vulnerabilities like Nessus or NetWitness or OpenVS. There are many software. So our students, when they actually think about vulnerability scanning or vulnerability assessment, so that's where the risk management comes. So when we do vulnerability scanning, we are trying to find out the vulnerability factor in the risk equation. So we want to make sure that are there any vulnerabilities which threat actors can expose or exploit, and then how to do that is vulnerability assessment. And that's where I will hire some people to do vulnerability assessment. That's where our students or information cybersecurity professionals comes in. Okay. And threat, so again, threat is anything that will exploit the weakness. So earthquake, so if we actually live in an area where it's earthquake prone, let me see if I have any chat, and if there is, just sorry, just give me a second. I'll just check anything, if there is anything is there. Hope my audio is okay. Just checking. Can you see my screen? Because I'm sharing my screen. Simin? Okay, so because fine, I was because okay, good. So thank you. So we will just here. Where were we? Okay, threat part. Okay, so threat. Now threat becomes very important. So again, there is a lot of thing. We'll go into detail. We'll do a metasploit. We did metasploit session some time back, where we exploited a weakness. We'll not go into the technical part. What we have to understand is threat is anything that will exploit the weakness. Okay. If you take a human factor into it, so social engineering, there are companies which actually do training in black hat conferences and other conferences where they actually train on how to exploit the human weakness, or what they call the human mind. Okay. So it can be like, it can be technically done by sending a phishing email saying that you are being laid off. Please see the list of employees who are laid off, who are going to be laid off, or you are migrated to a new department. See who is migrated to a new department or shifted to a new department. There are a lot of things. So see here, like again, some personal things. Check on your girlfriend or something, or boyfriend or something, because these are the human people will go and check that. Means most of the people, unless and also depending on what kind of psychological situation it's there. So that is a human weakness. We can also exploit the weakness on the software system. So we can also exploit a weakness on, say, for example, Windows 10. So if someone is using, or some Linux, so there are a lot of exploits which were released in 2 3 months on Linux, or if you're using Mac. So I'm not saying that I'm neutral against all the operating system. I'm saying this is how they can exploit the vulnerability. Again, if there is no vulnerability, it can't be exploited. Say, for example, there is means like there is an attacker who is a social engineer who can actually try to fool everyone, but he can speak only in English. So only if the audience is English speaking, so he can actually target them and try to manipulate their mind and do something. But I don't speak English. I don't understand English. If that is the case, then he can't attack any of our employees. Say, for example, if most of the employees don't speak English, they don't understand English. They don't communicate with any person who speaks English. They communicate with their manager who translate, and that manager doesn't have to do anything with that particular country. So then you are safe from that attack. Okay. So that is the threat. So again, you have to remember one more thing in the threat. In the threat part, there are threat actors and there are threat vectors. So threat actors can be anything. So threat actor can be a person, threat actor can be nature. So if we have an earthquake, the threat actor is a nature. Okay, nature exploits our weakness. So it's raining. Last 2 days it rained heavily in Bangalore. So if if some farmer had didn't do risk assessment, for example, and said, okay, it will not rain in May in Bangalore. So then it rained. So that's unfortunate incident would have happened. So he would have lost all his crop. So nature played a foul game there. So nature is something which you can't predict. So nature is a threat actor. A person is a threat actor. Okay, a software can be a threat actor. It exploits the weakness of another software. And threat vector is how they attack. And this is where a lot of threat intelligence comes in. So there are a lot of companies which give you information. There is threat intelligence is a subject by itself. So there are some software which automatically share that information. There are some paid feeds. You should know how attackers are attacking, what methodologies they are using. Some monitor dark web and give intelligence about the dark web. Because if you see the Colonial Pipeline attack which happened in US, the password was leaked in dark web. So means that's what they say. So like some companies do monitor dark web. There are a lot of companies which monitor. Actually, if you do a dark means there are some companies which work with law interception means agencies and with legal agencies. So what they do is they do monitor this dark web, and they actually give a service to all this. These are legal service, okay? These are not illegal. So they monitor dark web for some pattern, and based on that pattern, if you subscribe to the service, they actually provide that information, so this is happening. And what they do is they actually monitor some 3 or 4 dark markets. So they say like in the dark web, the persistence of a dark web market site that is which is illegal things, the lifespan is less. So most of them come and go. But those who stay, again, they have a lot of measures. And they deal with only crypto. They have some kind of like invitation kind of a thing. They do monitor their thing, but there also these companies will come in and they monitor what is the behavior. They use metadata and other things. So you need, if you are in that means like if you want to proactively monitor threats and you know that you have vulnerabilities, all the vulnerabilities cannot be patched. So there will be vulnerabilities, there will be software, but you want to monitor the threat side of the risk angle so that you can reduce the risk. So that's where all the threat intelligence, threat monitoring, all those things comes. Attacker attribution, adversary emulation, all those things come there. So what tactics they are using, uh, what techniques they are using, what procedures they are using, what they call TTP. So all those things will come into picture. It's an exciting thing. So security is always exciting, but we have to understand in the big picture where this all this fit in. So if a student wants to undergo means learn more about threat intelligence, where it's fit in the threat part of the risk equation. Okay. So The risk part is again threat into vulnerability into something. So what is this something? We'll discuss very soon. So if we don't manage the threat part, or if we don't manage, because threats will always be there. So vulnerabilities will always be there. If there is a vulnerability, there will be threat. We know or we might not know. For example, there is a 0-day vulnerability, which, say for example, I'm using a Mac, so I don't know, means there might be a new vulnerability which even Apple doesn't know. So then someone would actually try to inform Apple, or they would actually sell it in the dark market. So I have to manage that part, means I have to ensure that even though I'm using software which I'm not 100% sure, I have to still do business. I can't say, okay, no software is safe, so I will not use internet. So internet is not safe, so I will not browse internet, I will not connect to internet. Then you need not worry at all. So if you don't use internet, if you like, you'll be out of business, and that's the unfortunate thing. So we can't say that I will not use internet, or I will not use X software, because that is no software is safe. We can't say like that. So we have to manage this part, and how to manage will come. Okay, we have to manage the risk. So if you manage the risk, so if you manage the risk properly, the things which are preventing us from reaching our goal, we can manage that so that we can reach our goal. Okay. Ultimate thing, don't forget our big picture. We have to reach our objectives. To reach our objectives, we have a strategy. So strategy requires use of IT assets. So IT assets sometimes are actually some things which prevent us from IT assets are risks. So if you manage risk properly, then we can use our IT assets to reach from point A to point B. Then our strategy succeeds, we'll reach our objectives, our goal succeeds, our mission succeeds, and our vision succeeds. Okay, so that's how important risk is. Okay, so to do that, we have to identify the risk. So all the companies will not face the same risk usually. Say the risk a company A faces might be different from a company B faces. And also what happens is, say now just say that your company has a risk team. So we have a risk team in place. So we have to actually understand what are the risks our enterprise faces. So whom to ask about that? Who will give information about the risk the enterprise faces? So one is like our team, so our employees, so they know much more than many of the people. So they know, like, this is our sales department, this is the finance department, this is the information technology department. They know what risks they face. So for example, information technology, they tell, okay, listen here, we are using Windows 3.1. Then you will ask, why are you using Windows 3.1? Because the application on which this software runs only on Windows 3.1. Even if I use Windows 95, it will crash. But this application is so critical that I can't stop it, or I can't say I will decommission it, because then majority of a software doesn't work. So you might have faced this situation when you are managing, because legacy applications are always a problem for security people. So they will tell, okay, oh, that you then as a risk team, you'll say that's a major risk. Yes. So what you will do, we'll come to it later for that particular thing. So we have to identify risk. And also when you're identifying risk, again, you can do vulnerability assessment, you can do pen testing, penetration testing. The difference is vulnerability assessment, you just identify vulnerabilities, and pen testing, you actually try to exploit those, again with management approval. So again, our students can understand where exactly the vulnerability and the pen testing comes. It also comes later. Again, in risk identification, you can actually use vulnerability assessment and pen testing. And majority of the times, again, when you interact with the employees, when you interact with your partners, when you are key suppliers, there is a bias. So bias in the sense, they will tell that, okay, their process is very important, and their process has a lot of vulnerabilities, so you have to actually make it secure, or make it vulnerability proof, means foolproof kind of a thing. So you have to be very careful when you actually interact with take this input. You have to take with a pinch of salt, like it might be biased. So it's not always biased, but there will be some bias. It's a human nature. So everyone wants to say that my process is very important, And if my process is patched or my process is made secure, other processes are okay. It doesn't work like that. That's why risk is a very complicated thing. Okay. Now we'll come to the something. So risk is threat into vulnerability into something. Now you have identified what are the threats. Okay, but all the threats will not happen simultaneously, or all the different threats, each one will have a likelihood of happening. Again, risk is probability. So probability, another word is likelihood. So it might happen, it might not happen. Or if it happens, how often it happens? What is the frequency of that threat materializing? Okay, the threat exploiting that vulnerability, how frequently it happens. Say for example, if you take Japan, for example, Japan unfortunately faces earthquake. It's not that every day Japan faces earthquake. They have done some research and say, okay, the probability is say once in a year or twice in a year. I'm just giving an example. Say in one of these states in India, we get flooding. So the flood doesn't happen every day. So it happens once in a year, or once in 2 years, or once in 3 years. So again, a likelihood. So say for example, we actually refresh our systems, IT systems once in 2 years. So during the last period, or last 6 months, we are anticipating new things. It might not be patched properly if the thing. So the likelihood of attack is more. So likelihood is very important. Okay, threat is always likelihood. And and also it's not the likelihood, it's also the impact. So threat, this is the final formula for threat. Sorry, for risk. Risk is threat into vulnerability into likelihood, and if it materializes, what is the impact? So if impact is very less, so it's say like if all this materializes and the loss is $100, I'll say why to do all these things? Don't do risk management, because if you do all this threat analysis, vulnerability, likelihood, and you analyze that for this particular thing, then the impact is just say very less, then the whole thing comes down. So impact is very important, because everything at the end of the day comes to dollars. Okay, so what is the loss? What is the brand loss? What is the financial loss? What is the employee loss? And again, we have to do for every process. So it's not, this is not done for one process. Risk is calculation is done for various processes which we have. Okay, and then when we do for the various processes we have, we actually rank those risks. So this risk, if it materializes, it will have huge impact. Okay, and the likelihood of that happening is too much. So then we say this has to be treated, or this has to be, you have to deal with this. So the next risk is okay when compared to the previous risk. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that we do a ranking. Okay, this process is called as risk assessment. Okay, so there is qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative is you attach numbers, because the management or the board of directors, whoever it is, they like numbers. So you have to say, if you say quantify this and say this is risk one, this is risk two, this is risk three. Risk one results in say loss of $1 billion if it materializes. Risk two is $50 million. Risk three is $25 million. If you say like that, then the management understands in many of the cases. But that is very difficult, because you are dealing in future, means there are technologies to do that, but you are dealing in future. So means it's kind of always there is a X factor associated with those numbers. Qualitative means it's based on your experience. So what we do in qualitative is, if I go here and if I show an image of qualitative risk analysis, so some image like this, so they actually, you say like this is the likelihood and this is the consequences or the impact. So if the likelihood is certain and the impact is also catastrophic, then you have to do something. So if the consequences is like say major, but the chances are rare, then you need not do it. Or if the event is, the impact is catastrophic but it never happens. Say for example tsunami. In Bangalore we cannot get tsunami, because like the sea is very far away. So then why to deal with that threat if it cannot materialize or we are not vulnerable? Okay, So that is qualitative. The problem with qualitative is it's a good measure, but management sometimes doesn't like it. Say they will say, okay, what is this almost certain? Give me a dollar value. What is this 20? Give me a dollar value. 20 means what? 20 means good or bad or worse, what it is. You have to give me a dollar value. So that is, there are a lot of methods in risk management to actually give a value to it. But again, it depends on individual to individual, company to company, and management to management. Okay. Let me come back to my presentation. Another 5 minutes, we are done. Okay. So risk is threat into vulnerability into likelihood into something. Okay. And then the something part we said impact. Okay. The next, after we rank, then the next step is risk treatment. So what we do after we say this is risk 1, this is risk 2, this is risk 3, based on the impact and the likelihood, what we do, we have to treat that. So when we treat that, we use controls. So the first way to treat the risk is, or the first way, or it's not the first way. One of the way to treat the risk is risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is you want to minimize the impact of the risk, or if possible, eliminate, which is not going to be easy. Try to mitigate the impact when it materializes. Okay. So you can do that using minimizing the threat factor, minimizing the vulnerability, try to minimize the likelihood, or try to minimize the impact. So any four or all four or any three or whatever it is in the formula. So then how to do it? Usually use controls. Controls means something which will minimize the impacts, like firewalls, okay, our VPN concentrators, antivirus, okay, physical security, uh, and policies, procedures, and all those things. So managerial controls, physical controls, technical controls. That's where when our students study firewalls or network security and all those things, they actually come here. Okay, and also our detection technologies like intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, monitoring. So all those things come in risk mitigation. So most of the security prevention or detection or all the things, most of it comes here in the risk mitigation thing. Okay. So to do that, you have to do a cost benefit analysis. Say if my attack says, if my threat, if my risk assessment says that if the risk materializes, the impact is say 100, say $1 million. Okay, and to prevent it, you need to buy 5 firewalls and two denial of service, anti denial of service or denial of service prevention mechanisms that will cost you $2 million. Then it's left to the management if they want to go with it or not. Most of the times they will say no, because what you save by actually implementing that measures is actually I lose more if I don't, or I lose less if I don't implement it. But sometimes what happens is you have to also understand it's not only the difference part, it's also the government says you have to do it, compliance. Again, your PR, public relations, so you can't say okay, even if it costs $1 million extra, I have to implement, because if I don't do it and if it gets publicized, then no one will trust me, or you might not have that amount of money with you when it is needed. So all those things comes into picture. So risk mitigation is where most of the security people play in. Another one is or risk mitigation, or you can transfer the risk. There are some insurance companies which take you to take the risk. It's not that if you don't implement this, you will actually means if you do risk transfer, you should not implement any risk mitigation. It's not like that. When you implement risk transfer, those companies will come and check whether you have some sound security practices in place. So whether you have some risk mitigation in place. Even then, if it is your database is breached or something, then they will pay you the amount. Otherwise, they will not pay you. You can check the Sony case which happened. So the company didn't want to pay because they felt that Sony didn't had the proper measures when the Sony, the interview movie case. Okay. So risk treatment, one is mitigation. Okay, next is risk transfer, and the next one is acceptance. So you will not do anything. You will say, okay, if risk materializes, let it materialize. I'm going ahead. So for example, if you go to the cloud, you will say, okay, I will not do any mitigation thing. If someone hacks my presence in the cloud, let them hack. We'll see when it happens. So just accept it and continue. Okay, like people who don't wear mask when it was COVID peak time. So they said, okay, if COVID comes, let it come. So I'm fine. So I'll accept that risk. So again, it's bad. Definitely, it's bad. But it depends on company to company. They'll say, okay, means let's go ahead. Risk is again probability. There is a chance that it might not happen. So next year, if we get more fund, we'll see. But this time, let's leave it. So let's go ahead. And the last one is avoidance. Don't do it at all. There is a difference between acceptance and avoidance. Acceptance is you do that activity. You don't care about the consequences. Avoidance, you don't do it at all. You will say, okay, that is risk. You have two roads, okay, road A and road B. So road A is normal. It takes 50 minutes to reach your destination. Road B is 10 minutes, okay. You can reach your destination, but that is very risky road. Means there are a lot of traffic and like there is threat of robbers coming and stealing. So you will say, I will not take that road at all. And even if it says 40 minutes extra, I will take the other road. I will avoid that. So for example, the cloud example. So I will say, they'll say, okay, why I will not go to the cloud. I will not take that risk of going to the cloud at all. Forget it. So I'll just use my on premises. Who will go and pay all the fines and other things? I'll not go at all. Again, it's bad because you lose the opportunity. Again, remember, risk has both positive and negative. But if you don't take risk at all, means if you don't figure out that manage that risk, then you are just avoiding the risk. Again, some companies do it. So human beings also do it. So it's nothing strange. So the last step is monitor. So you have to monitor your risk. Risk changes. Risk is dynamic. As the environment changes, risk also changes. So today you might be safe, tomorrow you might not be safe. Tomorrow the like for example ransomware. So in hospitals the attackers continuously monitor. So as soon as they the new version of ransomware comes, they attack these hospitals or education agencies who have paid. That's why they say don't pay to the ransomware actors. So as soon as they know that you are a person who pays, then they will keep on doing this to you. So the risk changes. So you have to monitor the risk. So there are something called as key risk indicators, which shows how your risk is going. Has it reached a threshold, like where you have to come and manage and all those things. And you also have to give the report to the management, like how your risks are doing, key risks, how they are performing. Have they been mitigated or are they under control? So that's why you can reach your goal. Okay. Some other terms, residual risk is after you do all this treatment, still some risk remains. You cannot eliminate the risk. So residual risk, the formula is inherent risk minus all your risk management or risk treatment thing. Still some risk remains. That is residual risk. And if that residual risk is acceptable by the management, then you are under the risk appetite of the management. Risk appetite is how much risk the management can take, the senior management. So the board of directors, how much they can take. So if your residual risk is okay by the management, they say, okay, this I can't do anything. And if I try to minimize it, I'll have to spend another $1 billion. Let us take this. So that is the risk appetite. Okay. So if it is, it depends on management. Management says, no, 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 let us minimize further. Then the risk appetite also reduces. Okay. Risk tolerances, it's above the risk appetite, but sometimes management is okay with that. Okay. Sometimes management says, okay, let's just try this out. Means it's behind my, I can tolerate a loss up to $1 billion, but if this materializes, my loss will be $1.2 billion. But okay, I'll not be bankrupt. But by spending and if this materializes, I'll not be bankrupt. So let's try. It's not always the case, but sometimes companies do go behind the risk appetite level. Okay. And risk appetite is the maximum risk. You should not reach this level. So you will be bankrupt. So if you are say $1 billion in reserve, and if this risk materializes, it will be $1 billion gone, then you are out of business. So okay, that's why you should properly manage your risk appetite. Okay. So again, that was the thing. So exactly, I stopped. I will just enable um, the polling. Give me a second.